Neil, how's it going?
Hey, hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. See, Elisa has joined us as well.
Fantastic.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Lisa.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, we'll give it. Should we give it a few more minutes, Sophia, you think, or should we just get started?
I think we can go ahead and get started. Let's see, we are at that 10 o'clock mark and we're recording. So if anyone wants to rewatch the intro, I say we can go ahead and get on with it.
All right, well, everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be doing the OSINT expert panel. Joined here with Elisa Yurchenko and Daniel Bogdanovich. Elisa works for the Kyiv Independent and Daniil works for the Fix. My name is James Bianco. I'm currently a student at the University of Missouri, and we're basically just going to be going over some questions with them and give some time for Q&A today. So feel free to ask questions along the way, and we'll make sure to get to it. Um, so I don't know, Lisa and Danielle, do you want to kind of introduce yourselves a little bit?
Sure, we
So
can
would you like to
start.
start? Okay, yeah.
So I have been working as a journalist for more than 20 years. Yeah, I know that I look very young, but it's real. And 10 of them I've been working as an investigative journalist. Actually, I joined the Kyiv Independent, which is an English language media outlet about Ukraine, recently. And before that, I had worked for 10 years with Bigos team, which is Ukrainian language, one of the most prominent investigative project in Ukraine, anti-corruption project in Ukraine about like Ukrainian corruption cases. Yeah, so mostly in Bigos I covered topics related to oligarchs, Ukrainian oligarchs, Russian oligarchs, and so on. Their influence, like we followed budget funds, transactions. We covered a lot of stories related to politicians. And now I focuses at the Kyiv Independent. I focuses mostly on the war-related topics, like Russia-related topics, covering this area. Yeah, that's it.
Alright. So my name is Daniil, and actually, I don't have such an incredible background as Alyssa. I actually was kind of forced to get into investigative journalism. It wasn't like my, let's say, dream. It just happened because in 2020 in Belarus we had presidential elections, and the police started just brutally breaking down the protests. They started beating people, killing people, and I just couldn't stay on the side. So I decided to create Black Book Belarus. That was a kind of a project, OSINT project that aimed first of all on identifying corrupt police officers that were beating people and harassing, harming them, even killing some of them. Then we were also investigating corrupt judges that were convicting people to incredible sentences for defending their rights for free elections and just freedom. Then we were also investigating some governmental officials, and as you can see in my description, we've gathered over 3,400 officials. We've passed the lists to various governments, including the UK, US Department of State, and the European Commission. Some of them were sanctioned. Right now, the project is inactive for many reasons, mostly because I would say uh, it appeared not to be as effective as we expected it to be. And moreover, I think right now we have something more like a frozen state of this, I don't know, revolution or civil war, depending on how you describe what's going on in Belarus. And there is not much things to do, and also it's a big danger for people inside of Belarus to share any information with anyone. And yeah.
Well, thank you both for sharing. You've both definitely done very important work. So, obviously OSINT is a big part of both of what you guys do. So how would you describe OSINT for somebody who's unfamiliar with what it is and what its purpose is, and kind of why do you think it's important for journalism today?
Maybe I can start with the more simple definition, and then Elisa can correct me and adjust to more professional one. I would describe it as, well, first of all, OSINT is open source intelligence. And I would describe it as a process of gathering the data from the open sources that might include, pictures, any databases that are openly available, maybe cameras, web cameras, etc.
Yeah, actually, Danielle's description is absolutely correct. I would only add that OSINT is like a brilliant method of investigation or research for introverts, because you can just sit in front of your laptop and find a lot of useful data, useful information to make investigations, to publish your story, or even if you need some information for your business, you can also do this using like online tools, online databases, online registers. What is important is that like OSINT is it's not about hacking or something like this. It's about legal use of online tools and online database. So that is about like only legal use of information.
So, as far as using OSINT tools, can you talk a little bit about the kind of tools that you guys have used, whether it's ones that you or your team has created or ones that are openly available online?
Sure. Let me then probably start, because I think my list will be smaller than Elisa's because of my experience. So first of all, we were using some tool. I don't think I should disclose the name. I can just describe it as much as possible, and I'll explain later why. I can't name it. So basically, when just a little background probably. So when we started that, it was very amateur, and it was like more, I would say, like driven with our desire to help people, because we wanted the violence to stop. So we decided to name corrupt police officers so that they would know that they could be punished for that later. So the first tool that came up to our mind was a tool that was looking across Contactia. Contactia is like an analog for Facebook, but in Russian, Belarus, and used to be widespread in Ukraine. I don't think it's anymore the deal, but anyway. The thing is that in Belarus, police officers can't use any social media. I think it's either a law or it's a kind of internal regulation. So the thing is that they are not using usually under their own names, these social networks, but sometimes they're using fake accounts. But also sometimes that you might find them on the pictures of their relatives, friends, and so on. So this tool, it was basically comparing the picture that you provided with all the pictures uploaded to Contactium. So sometimes you could find a police officer on a picture of, I don't know, of his mother, or her birthday, or um, I would say on a wedding, or on his girlfriend's photo, and so on. So we were using this tool, and after some time, the creator of this tool basically reached out to us and asked us to stop naming this tool and stop indicating that we are using this tool. And in kind of in return, he provided us with the unlimited access, because this person was, I think he was a Russian citizen, and he was afraid that he will also suffer, because we are using that, and that project was considered pretty toxic, because corrupt police officers usually doesn't like when you name them, right? So that was one of the tools. The other one that I really discovered not so pretty recently, I would say, it's GeoSpy. I think it's still in beta, but what it does, it basically analyzes the picture and it gives you an approximate location of the where this picture was taken. And I think it's a great tool. It still sometimes has some pretty serious errors, mistakes, makes mistakes, but in general, I think that might be the future of OSINT when, well, one of the possible ways is just these people who are doing guesser. Yeah, I don't know if you know about that. It's some kind of a game when you kind of get a specific spot on the map. You can look around and you have to guess where it is located. And some people are so good at it that it takes them like 5 seconds to guess any place on Earth. And it is just fascinating. And I think these people are even better than this AI. So they are the future of OSINT for sure. But also AI tools allow us to make this work a lot faster and easier. However, sometimes they make mistakes. Yeah, so probably I should give my word to Alisa. Maybe I will come up with some more ideas. I don't think all of them were super legal. I think we'll speak about the other tools a bit later when we'll be speaking about the legality.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Actually, I use online tools literally every day, and there are so many of them that it's really impossible to list all of them. So I propose I'll share with you one of the latest examples from my work. Actually, it was my first investigation for the Kiev Independent. It is called Shattering the Secrecy of Putin's Top Spy Chief. Actually, I found out that the second in command of the notorious secret service, Russian secret service, which is called FSB, that this guy is listed in sanctions lists of EU countries with like mistaken date of birth. And another fact was that he uses a photo of another man, like to represent himself. Actually, media use his false photo to represent him. How I found this out? Actually, I was searching through sanctions databases, and suddenly I understood that there are three different dates of birth for this like deputy head of the FSB in different sanctions lists, and it looked very strange and weird. Why? Because this man obviously was born only on one of these these days. So I started analyzing, and my first task was to analyze Russian leaked data, because during this Russian war against Ukraine, there were a lot of hacked databases, Russian databases, and they are now collected in different online tools. They were made both by Ukrainian activists and also by Russian activists. One of them is called revenge.ee. This is like Ukrainian one, and there is its Russian analog, which is called Himera Search, for example. So you can search for Russian citizens in such leaked data. And I found information on this guy. His name is Krylov, Sergei Krylov. In this database, and then I had to verify it. I had to check it somewhere in official source. And there is like another database which is provided by Russian official tax service, where you can put passport details, a name of a person, and his birth date. And if they are correct, you will receive his tax code. So this was the source, official source, to verify this information from the leaked database. And then I started analyzing his photo, because there was a single photo which was used by a lot of news media. But I noticed that investigative journalists, actually Russian investigative journalists in exile, they have never used this photo, and they actually used no photo for this guy. So that I used another tools, actually facial recognition tools, for example, PMIs, search for faces. There are a lot of them, but PMIs, I believe, it's a brilliant one. It's very helpful and useful. So this program told me that this was a photo of another guy, and using search for faces, I understood like who this guy was. And I called him. I just called him and asked him whether it was him on this photo, and he approved. Yes, yes, it's me. It's not Krylov, and I don't know why some of Russian journalists use this photo, pretending to represent Krylov. Yeah, so these were like the main tools I used to publish this story. But as I have said, there are a lot of other tools which we use actually every day to make our investigations.
So,
Yeah.
so kind of going along with that, we had a question from the audience here. Would you say that as far as covering their tracks, that kind of these people are getting smarter as far as like the dictatorships goes? Are they just as stupid as us with using Facebook more than they should, or they using encryption more often? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can start probably. So I would say that it depends on the level of person. So when we're talking about usual police officers, the correct police officers, they are usually as dumb as it could be. So they are, yeah, they are just all over the place. You can find all of their pictures and so on. When we're talking about more senior, more sophisticated, like, intelligence people, so they came up with an idea of they literally produce fake passports for them. And the passports look just as genuine as they could be. And the only way you could check that is that we had a hacker organization called Cyber Partisans in Belarus. And they basically snitched a whole database of passports, like all the passports of Belarus. And what we could do, we could search for this particular name. It was obviously a closed one, and we had very restricted access. They were controlling everything we were doing just to avoid any leakages, but we were also trying to use it very, I would say, honestly. And so you could just search for this name of a person, and you could see that the first passport was like, the first photo of this person of the passport was issued when he was like 30 years old. In Belarus, you get your passport reissued every 10 years. So like starting from 6 years old. And so you will have your very childhood photos, and and they will be gradually moving forward as you grow up. And when the person doesn't have any childhood pictures, when you can't search for his or her parents, when there are no such people, you probably could guess that there's something's wrong over here. But generally, I would say that a lot of people are just very they are not careful with their digital kind of footprints, and they leave them all over the place. And that is why it's very important to deal with that. It becomes harder when we're talking about the European Union, because they have a law called like the law to be forgotten. and every resident of the European Union, that includes even holders of a temporary residence permit, they can submit an application to Google asking Google to remove any links about them from the search. That makes it a bit harder, but then we have different search engines such as Yandex, that's a Russian one, and despite of it being Russian, the only benefit of it is that they do not delete such things by default, or at least not for European residents, right? They might delete something for FSB or for Russian agents, but they will not delete it for European residents. And I would say that it's not a super rare case when some guy that is involved in being a Belarusian or Russian agent, they might be a holder of a residence permit. Especially a few years ago, that was a very widespread case. Now it's getting harder for them, but before that, that's a, a pretty common practice. So they could easily delete all the information about them from the internet. Yeah, but now it's not that easy, I would say.
Yeah, actually, Daniel has said a lot of right things. I would just add that when we speak about politicians, oligarchs, staff from the law enforcement bodies or secret services, surely they are sophisticated. They don't want to publish a lot of information about themselves, but at the same time, their families might be not so sophisticated and not so smart in this area, and they sometimes they do publish a lot. And so my advice, if you like search for some information about politician or some other stuff, please like try to analyze his or her family as well, and this might be helpful. Yeah.
I would also like to follow up on that because I just recalled just a brilliant example of OSINT, a very recent case. So some journalists, I believe there were some Russian investigative journalists, they came up with an idea to track the kind of feet bracelets of Putin's bodyguards, and basically they tracked where they've been with Putin, or like they tracked that they've been to some international trips, so that's how they triangulated that's their feet bracelets, and then they managed to confirm that the famous Putin's castle that was in an investigation of Navalny is a real deal because these bodyguards were at this very place very often. So now you can't really tell that this is someone else's castle because Putin's personal bodyguards are, hanging out there pretty frequently. So pretty much we can draw the line that this his castle. He's spending time here, there, and so on and so forth. Another example that I find brilliant. I could never even think of that. I've heard it in the U.S. Is that someone came up with an idea to track Venmos of people, right? Because by default, Venmo, it's like for those who doesn't know, it's like a social network for bank transactions. Can I call it like that? I think I can, right? It's weird and wild, but they came up with it. It was made by PayPal, if I'm not mistaken. So by default, all the transactions are public. So if you know a person's phone number, you can just go there and check all of the transactions and check whoever he sent money to and from whom he received money, and like that's absolutely insane, but that's a real working scheme, and I'm still fascinated by that.
So, you guys have both kind of mentioned that in some of your work, you've relied a little bit on data that's been kind of put out in the public by what you might call an ethical hacker or ethical hacker group. And, I guess my question is, what's the biggest challenge when it comes to verifying the authenticity of this kind of open
Mm.
source intelligence, especially, with both Belarus and the Russian government having a large apparatus as far as pushing out disinformation and fake inform all this fake information of their own.
I would
So
say
a
like
base,
this.
yeah. So let's go on. Right.
Thank you, Daniel. So when it comes to big data, I believe the most dangerous thing is that this data might be incomplete. So you need you should always remember that probably you do not see the whole picture. So please just keep it in mind. The second point is that this data might be out of date. So yeah, we really need to use some official tools or some official sources, or even like email, text people and talk to people to verify this information, because yeah, the main danger is that this data might be incomplete or out of date.
So from my experience, I should say that we were dealing, as I mentioned, most like overwhelmingly with people's personal data, right? So you want to be very careful about that. Because you don't want to make somebody blamed for something that he or she didn't do, right? So very quickly we developed a kind of a mechanism, not a mechanism, probably a guideline, internal guideline that we gather as many proofs as possible before publicating a person publishing his or her personal data. So we were gathering any proofs, the documental proofs, first of all, that would include any, photo, preferably video, of course, maybe some kind of official governmental documents, the kind of what police is issuing. But also we were working with the, I would say, with the testimonies. We set a limit for at least 3 testimonies from different people to ensure that we get it from 3 different sources. And that way, I think when you get 3 testimonies, the chances of being wrong are quite low. However, simultaneously with us, there was another organization that was a project that was active also in Belarus that was called Belarusian Punishers. They were, I would say, less careful with data. They tend to kind of blame people straight away without any proofs, without any documents, without screenshots. They were just posting something like, here is the guy, he was beating people, and his address. I still find this very dangerous. And I don't want to go too much into details, but I think that this approach, unfortunately, was very beneficial for the government, for the Belarusian regime, because that was a great example for them to show to the kind of undecisive police officers who were kind of thinking of maybe uh, joining democratic forces. They were showing them, look, these people, they want you kind of punished that. So if you will join them, if they will win, you will be in prison or maybe even dead, right? Because there were some extremist groups that were trying to do kind of the same work that we were doing, but they were kind of lacking this internal limitations. They were lacking some, I don't know how to phrase it even better. They were lacking some professional attitude to that, maybe a too extreme attitude, I would say. But it is what it is. It happened.
If I may add, my idea is to collect online everything you can collect, and then try to use other sources, traditional sources, to verify this information, to prove it. And when it comes to publishing, please publish only those pieces of information which are totally verified.
I agree. We were also desperately looking for a professional who could do a facial recognition, just not to rely on the tools, because tools are tools. Especially back in 2020, we didn't have AI so good, well developed. But it appeared to be incredibly hard to find a person that defected to the democratic forces that was ready to do this facial recognition as a professional. We were also trying to search for someone in the EU that was either super expensive or super rare. So that could really benefit us, but unfortunately, it's just like you don't have these people who are ready to cooperate. That's it.
So this question will be for both of you, but as far as but like I was saying before, is that Russia and Belarus are both well known for having large apparatuses for misinformation that they pump out constantly. They love interfering in politics and all that good stuff, especially I'm sure you've experienced it in both your organizations. So I'll start with Elisa, but with this recent story, have you experienced any pushback as far as Russian misinformation goes? Have you seen anything along those lines? And for Daniil, to go second, when you were talking about all this stuff with Black Box Belarus, what was uh, what were you experiencing as far as misinformation goes for the Belarusian government?
Let us speak about my investigation. I mentioned no, actually, I didn't feel like that. I didn't face some like misinformation uh, connected to this case, but what I remembered right now is an example of a brilliant investigation on Russian misinformation campaigns provided by another media outlet, Ukrainian YouTube channel, which is called Toronto TV or Телебачення Toronto in Ukrainian language. It is called "Who Creates Viral Deepfakes About Ukrainian Army." There is like only one example on this kind of OSINT investigations, but it's really amazing because they managed to find a lot of videos like deep fakes produced by Russians, and then the journalists, they managed to prove that this campaign was created and supervised by the Russian Secret Service, which is called GRU. So what they did first, they found this propaganda videos about Ukrainian army, and they started to analyzing like who was pictured, portrayed on that videos. They again used this facial recognition software. I believe it was PMIs as well. And they found out that those people who created these videos, they just use photos they bought on like stock platforms and put them as a mask on the videos filmed like in another places and about other people. So they understood that these videos were forged, and then they started analyzing like social media accounts which shared these videos, and that was like the way how they understood that and proved that another Russian secret service group was behind the story, behind this campaign. It was amazing.
Um, Speaking of my experience, I would say that, well, we didn't necessarily meet the attempts to throw in fake information. Well, there were some attempts, but I don't think they were made by police officers. There were some people that were seeking revenge because, it's such a great tool where you can just upload someone and write some, nonsense about the person, and then he or she will be published on this black book and potentially sanctioned. So it's like a great tool for revenge. So that's why we had this strict internal guidelines. Well, initial kind of North Star for me was Ukrainian Mirotvorets, Peacemaker. But I think in some ways we we were even better in terms of verification because Mirotvorets sometimes allows some, I would say, lousy publications there, a bit biased. But yeah, in general, Belarusian authorities they use these tactics of throwing in fake news, mostly kind of they can even create some additional work by themselves and throw it into throw it to independent media, and when independent media kind of do the basic check, and it kind of it sums up because they initially made it to sum up and then they publish it. And after that, Belarusian governmental state propaganda comes up with, a publication that is fake news. They debunk this publication, and that's the aim of that is basically to kind of destroy the trust of usual people to independent media and show that they're incapable of fact checking. And obviously, government has way more resources than independent media in exile today. But speaking of some of our examples, I'm not sure if I can call it an example of fake news, but when you are dealing with corrupt police officers, you have to understand that they are corrupt not just for like not just addressing Belarusian people, but also the government itself. So we had a police officer that basically shared with us a great amount of documents. Well, not just documents; they were like a full list of one of the major police, I don't know, regiment, kind of police group. Uh, and he got reward for that. We paid him like $2,000, I think. So he just basically sold out his friends for money for it was like some Bitcoin, so it wasn't traceable. So there were cases like that, and the only thing that he adjusted in this list was his own name because he didn't want to be published, or he wanted to be published under a fake name.
So, Daniil, this is probably a question more geared towards you. I know you have a bit of a background as far as international law goes, right? So, as far as, legal frameworks, how does that affect the collection and the use of open source intelligence? And I know, Alisa, for you, maybe with Ukraine, especially the Ukrainian military, I know that there's a law against filming, military movements and stuff like that. If you could both talk about that, we'll start with Daniil.
Well, when we talk about the legal part of that, it's always a very tricky area because we have the right for private life always, especially in Europe. We have European Court of Human Rights, and there should be a balance between private life, the right for private life, and public interest. And it's not always clear where's what, how do you balance that out? But also, Europe has this GDPR. This is a major legislation on preserving kind of people's personal data that could acquire. So you can't really publish that. You can disclose their address and so on. And the only kind of requirement for a person to be protected is to have at least a temporary residence permit in the European Union, in the European Union country. And as I said before, that might not be such a hard thing to acquire, especially in not so democratic countries such as Hungary, or some countries used not to check it really properly. I'm thinking a little bit of Latvia. They had a lot of residence permit issued for people who were just buying property in Latvia. Now it's not the deal, but it used to be like that. So you have to be really careful. But honestly, as a lawyer, if I started to think about all that legal restrictions, I would never start Black Book Belarus probably. So my decision was just to close my eyes and pretend that I don't see any legal problems here and just go for it. Because you know sometimes there are times when it's just black and white. There's good and evil, and if you see that people are getting beaten to death, or some of people are being raped with police buttons by police in the police stations, it's no longer about legal part of that. It's about just wanting to stop it, and you just investigate. I mean, you try to stay in the legal framework as much as possible, but when you kind of investigate and publish that, sometimes you can't think so much about potential GDPR violations that you will get fined. Okay, so probably I was ready to get fined for that, for these publications, but there was this point where it was really, scary, gory, and very violent. I wanted it to end.
From my point of view as a journalist, I can say that there is one tip that can help us to understand whether we are allowed to publish this information or not. It is like the code of journalistic ethics. And you can always consult with this document, just to understand where how to distinguish this private life and official life. But I agree that sometimes it's not an easy task to make this decision. I can share another example with you. Once I was attending like a study course on all of these ethical issues, and we were told the real case, which happened, I believe, in Sweden. So one of their media outlet published a video of their famous. I don't remember, like it was famous guy who was using drugs, but it happened in his private during his private party. It was closed, and he didn't propose anyone to use drugs, and it was really closed event. And their ethical commission made a decision that journalists were wrong when they published this story, and they had to delete this video, to delete this story from the public access, because it was his private deal, and we had a great discussion on that, but it was the decision of their ethical commission. So we have a lot of such difficult situations, and every time we have to find this balance, and to discuss whether we really must publish this information or no.
I would also like to add that with this black book, we took so much hit, from everyone. We became so toxic. So just for some background, for Black Book, I was sentenced to 12 years of imprisonment in absentia and recognized as terrorist by the Belarusian government. And the level of hit was so big that Apple and Google jointly pressured Pavel Durov, the creator of Telegram, where we were publishing all that stuff, and they were pressuring him to delete our project, not just our, but some others that were doing the same stuff. And they and unless he cooperated, they promised to delete Telegram from Apple Store and Google App Store, and he refused. Thanks to him, I really appreciate that. That was really important for Belarus. But also, when we started doing that, that seemed pretty kind of, I would say, impossible for anyone to do that. But we started naming the judges, because when you are a judge and you are sentencing a person who didn't harm anyone, who was just protesting for freedom, and you are sentencing him for 15 years in prison, that's insane. And when we were talking to the human rights defenders in Belarus, and I mean, we have just wonderful human rights defenders organizations. Just a few years ago, Vesna, the Spring in English, Belarusian human rights organization, they received the Nobel Prize of Peace, right? So they're just great guys. But they were refusing to share the names of the judges with us. And after some time, I would say after a year of our work, they also started publishing these names. I don't think it's something about doxing someone. It's about being transparent. It's about holding people responsible for their actions. If if a person is being sentenced to 15 years, and the only proof of his actions is the police officer who came to the court with the balaclava and named himself Ivan Ivanov, is the analog of John Smith in English, right? And that's the only testimony, and you sentence person to 15 years, probably everyone should know your name. Well, maybe not, not the name of your families, right? Not your address and like bank account, but at least your name, right? And who you are, so that people will know uh, that you will feel liable yourself. So sometimes you might be punished for that, because that's a crime. I find this a crime.
So, as far you guys have both sort of talked about, Lisa, you talked earlier about deep fakes and stuff like that. Do you think that, in your opinion, the public's perception of kind of accepting this open source investigation is changing at all? Do you think people are more or less distrustful that you've noticed, whether that's because of stuff like deep fakes or anything along those lines, like the disinformation that we talked about earlier? Elisa, you could start.
Um, Actually, it's a bit difficult question for me. I think that this OSINT method, it gives us like us as journalists and us as researchers, it gives mm, like inspiration to verify information, to check it, like to share uh, the trustful information after we made our research. That it's very important, and I believe that people around us, they understand that online tools are very helpful, and I have been seeing a lot of people who joined like as OSINT activists, and try to spend some time just to help journalists to find something interesting. They propose this help for us.
I would just like to add that luckily for us, so far, AI is not that advanced. Prof C knows that I'm quite a AI skeptic here. So luckily, you can still tell most of the times that that is a deep fake, or it was AI generated. Uh, I'm afraid that just in a few years it could be impossible to tell. But so far, usually when somebody starts to scream that that was a deep fake and I got set up, you could tell like if it was a deep fake or no. So usually, if you have a video proof of a person saying something and you can explicitly see his or her lips, you could tell if it was an AI altered, unless somebody spent like tens of thousands of dollars on producing it. But yeah, so luckily, I would say right now there is not so much skepticism about that. But I would say this will grow really soon. But so far, I think the main goal for real OSINT investigators is not just to focus on providing video and photo proofs, but also providing documental proofs, you know. And with documents, well, you still can use, some Photoshop, but when there are some leaked databases, it's getting harder and harder. Although I can also see some people being skeptical about leaked databases because before leaking it, you can always alter the date, right? But well, so far I don't see it as a major problem for OSINT movement, but it will become way worse.
So, kind of speaking more about those technologies, especially with AI, what advances in technology are you seeing that's going to be most beneficial to your work in OSINT specifically? Kind of how do you see the landscape changing in the future? And especially if you could touch on AI specifically, we did have a question about that as well. And Daniel, you could start.
Well, obviously, facial recognition, geographical recognition. I can also share the link in the chat of this GeoSpy web app that I mentioned before. I think these are very important and time-saving tools because you don't have to compare people, you don't have to do the research. PMI is just a great tool. I really love it, although it's pretty expensive, I think. But still, it's a great tool that helps you to save a lot of time. And I think that's probably the future of OSINT, to use these tools, both location and facial recognition, maybe voice recognition. I'm not sure if it's a deal right now, but I'm sure that it will become the deal soon. Maybe we could also, I my hope at least, that it will also kind of develop to the extent when we will be able not just to tell whose is that voice, but also was it AI created or was it a real deal? That's kind of my expectations of the market.
Yeah, speaking about facial recognition software, I would also mention a program which is called Face Match. It helps you to compare two photos to see if they belong to the same person or no. And another program, Filmot, which deals with videos, for example, with YouTube videos. You can analyze video even if there is no subtitles there. It analyzes through the whole video, and it's also very useful for your researches.
I
So,
also
oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, so I also think that it might be kind of a social mission for all these AI developers to not just kind of present us the tools to create fake, deep fakes or fake photos and so on, but also the tools on how can we check that, right? Because that's not confirmed. I've heard some rumors that there is a tool made by the ChatGPT team, OpenAI, that can really tell you if that was an AI generated text or no, but they are holding it closed just because that would ruin their business model. But I think it's the time to kind of speak a little bit about their social responsibility, and I'm really afraid of all the deep fakes that might just will kind of come to us very soon. And I hope that by that time we will have more tools that will be able to detect AI generated whatever it is, photos, videos, voices, texts, and that kind of could balance it out and give more credibility um, to the produced investigations.
So at this time, I want to open it up for Q&A here and make sure everyone has time to ask any questions they might have. So feel free to uh, do the raise the hand thing on here on Zoom. I believe they have it, or you could type in the chat.
I think I got my questions answered. Yeah, it's going to be this fascinating talk, and It's just going to be very interesting to see where this heads in the coming years with technology. And it's one of the things that I've learned about is how different the internet is. We can take things for granted here in the United States that things are open and the way things work, and we just don't quite understand it. So this has been, I wanted to thank you both for being here. This has been a great session.
Yeah, I also would like to note for those who are watching the recording, we're going to be going over in the next panel about kind of trying to identify people in the next workshop. And Scott actually, I believe, has done a workshop himself on AI use and deepfakes and all that stuff. So definitely all good information that will be supplemental to this as well. So make sure to keep an eye out for that.
All right. Thank you for having us. It was my pleasure. I'm sure Lisa also enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Happy to help.
thank you both.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank
the
you all so
invitation.
much. Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.